Hello there! Welcome to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and this week, along with special guest Mrs. Force Ghost Conversations herself, Elise King, we're going to take a deep dive into the Season 2 episode of The Bad Batch titled Metamorphosis. Before we get started, I'm inviting you to join the conversation with us. We can be found on Twitter and Hive at Force Ghost Pod. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok just by searching Force Ghost Conversations. And we look forward to connecting with you on those platforms. Also, if you'd like to, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your listening site of choice. Plus, Force Ghost Conversations is now live on Patreon. If you're a fan of the podcast and would like to consider pledging your support, there will be a link in the episode description for you to check out the various tiers offered. Finally, please be sure to check out our TeePublic store to buy some Force Ghost Conversations merchandise. And without further ado, it's time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another installment of Force Ghost Conversations. And boy, what a special episode of this podcast you're getting today, because I'm going to tell you right now, the conversation that Mrs. Force Ghost Conversations and I have, this dissecting Metamorphosis, the new episode of The Bad Batch, it's really special. We speculate a lot. We talk about the implications of the episode, so you certainly don't want to miss out on all of that. This is also your spoiler alert warning for the episode. If you haven't seen the episode Metamorphosis of The Bad Batch, what are you doing? Pause this episode now, go watch it on Disney Plus, and then come right back to this moment in time so that you are all caught up with everything that we are going to talk about, because it is fun. We get all into the nitty gritty of it all. You don't want to miss out at all on all the goodies that we have in store for that. And of course, because this is a midweek release, we are not going to be covering any of the news in this week's episode. That will be on our Sunday release, which will be all about The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 2, whatever that is titled. So be on the lookout for that, where we will talk about all the news happenings in the Star Wars Lucasfilm galaxy. You know the drill. So on the other side of this break, folks, we'll be right back with our conversation about Metamorphosis, the new episode from The Bad Batch Season 2. Stay tuned. Well, right, everybody. Welcome back to another hopefully incredible installment of Force Ghost Conversations. We're here to talk all about the new episode of The Bad Batch premiered last Wednesday, which was, of course, titled Metamorphosis. And, of course, to break it all down, to answer some of the questions I prepared in advance, you know her, you love her, of course. It is Mrs. Force Ghost Conversations, Elise King. Elise, welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here as always.
Well, we're more excited to have you back on the show and to talk about this incredible episode of The Bad Batch, dare I say. What were your initial thoughts about this episode when we first hit play? Did you have any inclination that this episode was going to go the way that it did, especially as that first kind of cold open scene happened?
My first thought was like, wow, what an entrance to like have this ship appear out of hyperspace, like slowly turning in destruction.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that is an amazing cold open. Also got very like horror sci-fi vibes from the cold open.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is like in the TV show The Expanse, when they come on the ship.
Really, that first episode.
With the goo everywhere. Yeah. I was like, ooh, this is very sci-fi, horror beats, another genre nod. I see a trend in the whole season. Yeah, it was really fun. I was like, this is a new beat and I like it.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Now, this episode does a great job of moving the needle forward, so to speak, from what we saw at the end of Season 1. The Empire is trying to control cloning operations and experiments for their own usage.
Surprise.
Yeah, surprise. Big surprise there. Do you think that the project that Dr. Hemlock, the doctor that is talking to Nala Se and the Prime Minister at the end, the main Imperial guy, who I believe is the voice of McBoyle from It's Always Sunny, you probably know him from other things, but that's all I know him from. Do you think that the project is just the tip of the iceberg for the Emperor's plans?
I think you answered your own question with the question. It is, I think, only the tip of the iceberg with the Emperor's plans. I thought the Prime Minister was dead.
I thought so too, but evidently not.
They killed the guy in the room next with the Prime Minister, but not the Prime Minister himself.
Maybe they just wounded him.
Yeah.
Maybe they just, all we see is blaster bolts going. We see the door close. Pew pew.
Yeah.
Who was pewing who? We don't know. Or where the damage was done, right? Did they just shoot him in the legs to make it easier to transport him? Like that. I think it was wise of the Empire to do so, to not kill him. I think that was a smart political move on their end, because then they can use it to their advantage now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he has information, obviously. So why kill a wealth of information?
Yeah. It's not like he can do any more like he can't do anything to them.
Yeah, I was just like, wow, okay, there's more than one. They're going to play off each other. And obviously the Prime Minister gives does not have any care in the world. Sorry, I'm trying to reframe for PG audiences. No care in the world for his fellow Kaminoan.
Yeah,
Nalase, and like is fine with her being manipulated. So see where his loyalties lie.
Survival is where his loyalty lies.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll do anything to get out of that prison.
Yeah, but I mean, it makes sense. It actually, I was kind of being facetious. It's not so much of a surprise. Like, why would they get rid of cloning technology? They can apply it in so many different ways, especially around weaponry, as we heard, taking the best parts of animals, right, and building out, manipulating it in their DNA for weaponry. But yeah, so it's not a surprise they're coming back to that. Also, they made a big deal of capturing the scientists last season. So I was interested to see her come back before we saw another Crosshair episode.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's only tip of the iceberg. It makes sense that the Emperor wouldn't let go of such a useful technology like cloning.
Do you think this has any ties to Exegol in episode 9?
Oh, I didn't even think about that. You obviously have thought about it.
Yeah.
All right, what are you thinking?
I mean, you gotta think it probably connects some dots at least, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to live forever, cloning is one way to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a perfected practice, of course, until what we see, the best that we can see in episode 9.
Wow, that's so much of a bigger picture than I was even thinking.
Yeah, the Bad Batch just almost in a way solidified itself amongst like
huge canon arcs.
It's very big in terms of the canon questions that it brings up and implications. Exactly. Yeah. So if you thought at home that you could skip the Bad Batch just because it's a fun kid animated show, perhaps rephrase your thinking here. There might be a bigger, larger story at hand playing out.
And I think they made it clear in the show that like even the Bad Batch realizes how big this is of what they've learned and witnessed at the end, when they're like, give it to Echo and Rex, like they know they can't just be like, woo, got away, thank goodness. They're like, something bad is happening.
Yeah.
I think even they like felt the weight of what they discovered.
The key thing for me in this episode is they kept bringing up about the Emperor, right? It wasn't just an Empire initiative that they were working on. No, this was the Emperor's like pet project in a way.
Yeah.
That was the vibe that I really got from the way that the Dr. Hemlock was explaining.
I'm not going to lie. I was so distracted by Hemlock's voice at certain points that I didn't really catch all the nuances that you caught. Because audience, Jimmy Simpson, who's the actor, what a voice.
Yeah.
What a smooth, buttery.
He's able to like really distort and change up his vocal tones for the role he's doing, because that's not really a voice that he does for any other acting thing I've seen him do.
I'd like kind of heard hints of it in other roles, but yeah, nothing as
devious.
Devious, but also like alluring, which makes sense because hemlock is a poisonous flower.
That's a good pull.
Lures you in, destroys you.
Destroys you from the inside.
But yeah, I was like, what a voice we have on this show. Glad to see he's not going to be gone.
Yeah.
You know, he's one of the new villains.
You know, we talked what's after Rampart. It seems like Dr. Hemlock is the next.
So shout out to Mr. Jimmy Simpson. Woo! Good job.
We'll see what happens next week.
Good job. Yeah. So good job on your voice. It was a good choice.
Yeah,
good
absolutely.
choice. But yeah, it did distract me. I did not catch all the nuance of like referring it to the emperor, not the empire. You know, like it was but you're right. It was a very like personal eye on this initiative.
So we'll have to put a pin on that one and see how much that may or may not come to be. But there's definitely, I think, the inferring of a connection to what we see in episode 9.
Yeah.
So the James Cameron vibes are plentiful in both Star Wars this week, right? So we both got The Mandalorian and The Bad Batch the same day.
Were you thinking of Alien?
Alien and Aliens in this one, of course. Ridley Scott too. I should mention, and of course in the Mandalorian, which go check out our episode on that one, which is available on all podcast sites now. A little bit about the Terminator with IG-11 when he comes back, right? Especially the half IG-11. Yeah. It's very reminiscent of that end sequence in Terminator 1.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
So a lot of James Cameron this week, and like in particular, like I mentioned, the influences are from Ridley Scott's Alien and James Cameron's Aliens. Did you have any reaction to that? Did you think about that as well?
I mean, just kind of what I said earlier of like it, you know, the Expanse also takes a lot of directorial and style notes from Cameron and Scott. So I definitely saw those pulses as well. I don't know if it's because I'm just paying attention more to movies in general. I just feel like the whole season, Bad Batch creators have been doing like a tip of the hat to a lot of different styles and genres of filmmaking and traditions within those genres. And so I'm like, I don't know if it's on purpose. I have to think it is, but I like how they're kind of going the rounds of all the different film styles.
Yeah, I would most assuredly say that it was inspired by that. The same crew worked on Clone Wars for the most part. And many of those episodes, George literally said, let's do an episode on this, which would be like, let's do a Kurosawa-inspired episode, Seven Samurai inspired episode. Let's do a Godzilla-inspired episode, aka the Zilla Beast, which we'll talk a little bit about.
A Godzilla beat later on.
Exactly. And of course, in Rebels, the same crew did that through line. There's the Jaws-inspired episode that we see with when Rex returns back.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm sure there's several others. I mean, this season of The Bad Batch alone, there was a lot of Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones influences, of course. So it's just, I think someone got caught up on some movies that they need to watch, or over the pandemic, they watched some classics, and then we're like, hey,
continuing the Star Wars tradition of nodding to favorite influences,
giving a nice subtle nod to your friends and colleagues that inspire them.
Yeah, I like it.
I like that too. We got to it already, Elise. The big monster in the room, the Zillo Beast, is back. Now,
when did we first see that?
I'm gonna ask you. Do you remember the episode from the Clone Wars that was all about the Zillo Beast? And
I'm ashamed to say I don't remember specifics. All I remember is like I know there's a monster that eats electricity and gets bigger.
Yep, the Zillo Beast. Yep.
I don't remember the rest of it.
I think it's like season 2 of the Clone Wars. It's a 2-part.
That's why.
It's very early on in the experience. It's like season 2 or 3. It's very early on in the canon timeline of the Clone Wars.
Yeah, I hadn't been convinced yet.
They find the Zillo Beast in episode 1, and then they like the Jedi, the clone. There's like they have an outpost on some planet. They defeat the droids there, and then the Zillo Beast comes up out of the planet.
Okay.
If I recall, they send like basically how they unlock Godzilla, right? There's a big explosion. It sends shockwaves down. It wakes it up. And then they get it under control. I think Mace Windu's involved, etc.
Is this the one where Mace is like, we cannot kill the beast?
Basically, yeah.
Okay, I remember this one.
Yoda 2, they're all, and then they take it to Coruscant Part 2, then it wreaks havoc on Coruscant.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember now, because I remember being like, is Mace being empathetic? Like, I was like, I don't believe that he actually has this in him, and I'm being surprised right now.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So the cliffhanger of that episode is the Emperor, then Chancellor Palpatine is like, take it, because they killed the Zillo Beast. They're like, take it for research. We must study it because of its very
dang,
armor-like
they're just
properties.
Looping back, aren't they?
So
impressive.
This is really like a 13-year-old plot line that has not been addressed at all.
And now you're connecting it to Exegol, which is at the end of
exactly.
what we know. Wild. Star Wars creators, you're doing it, man. You're doing it.
For those at home, whenever you question, like, what is this? Is this important? Why do we care?
It's probably important online, but you have to wait.
Just give it time.
Years.
Give it time. Let the creators tell a story. That's what they're hired to do. Don't worry about it.
We should know Filoni has every loose thread that's ever been put out there dangling in his brain,
Look,
waiting to weave a story.
Spoiler alert for The Mandalorian this week, folks, but we saw Purrgil in live action.
Yeah.
Like, the space whales
are
tied into The Mandalorian now, so, like, get used to it. It's gonna happen.
You know, all these little nods that are actually going to be integral to the story.
Exactly. And it's not like it's we want to put you, we want to one-up you and can't, like, if you know your deal or not when it comes to Star Wars. No, this is the opportunity to go back and look at other stories, right? It's an invitation.
Wow, I'm impressed. I knew there was it was like a little wiggling in the back of my brain, like, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
So here's the question I had, which, this will be an interesting one. Did you ever think that we'd get a follow-up to when, maybe,
obviously not, because I don't remember.
You didn't remember it, of course. So I guess it's like, you're just like, okay, maybe it comes up again in Clone Wars or something like that. But then it never happened over the course of 7 long seasons.
Or it was just one of those things of like, of course an evil guy is going to study a powerful creature. Like, duh.
Right.
I think it was going to loop into the Bad Batch.
So let's say in the Star Wars online community, the Twitter community, YouTube, this has been a long outstanding question.
Really?
For a while. Everyone has always been like, what's up with the Zillo Beast? Every time a trailer comes out for especially in the animated world, live action,
people have been hanging on bated breath for the Zillo Beast.
People have been like, are we going to get an answer to a Zillo Beast? Are we finally going to figure out what happens with that loose plot thread?
So did
There's so many YouTube videos that were like dangling threads from the Clone Wars series. Number 1 was always Zillo Beast. And now, yeah, there's been a lot of videos that are like, finally.
Wow,
vindicated.
I had no idea.
They unlocked a big Pandora's box there with this answer now.
I mean, I kind of was like, I'm sure the Emperor has like a menagerie of like animals they found during the Clone Wars that they need to exploit. Zillo Beast is one of them. Yes,
and I'm gonna make a terrible joke now, just because.
Okay.
Is that a new title that, like, for people like me that are on Zillow all the time?
You're a Zillo.
Should I be? Is that like a community phrase that we should be under? Like, we're Zillo Beasts.
Yeah, you're just constantly on looking at houses. My gosh, audience, I'm rolling my eyes, rolling them.
Oh, I had to get that out there while I was still fresh on my mind.
How long have you been sitting on that?
Just now.
Oh, really? That just popped in?
I was like, I need to say it now, or otherwise I might forget.
Now you have to. Now it's forever enshrined.
Oh yeah, it's out there in the world.
Oh wow, okay.
Trademark this.
All right, you Zillo Beast. Yeah, sure.
Woof. Well, of course the Zillo Beast wreaks havoc. The Empire comes in, does quick damage control in the situation, etc. Yada yada yada. What do you suppose happens to the poor townspeople that witnessed the carnage from the Zillo Beast?
I literally typed.
I think
in my notes. I said dead village.
Yeah, I think that's a loss. Operated a loss. That was.
I was a little surprised. I mean, they weren't super heavy-handed with it, and
at this point, you just
You just
assume
know.
it. You just like, all right, it's the Empire. They're going to just murder this town of people. We don't even think twice about it.
I was like, are they doing this because it's like a kid show? But they did like show murder in cold blood in the first couple episodes. So
yeah, I think that's about how far. It's a note to how far they've come in this show, where it's like we're so desensitized to the Empire and their atrocities that we just accept that they're just going to murder this whole town.
This whole town, yeah. No one can like whisper a word about it.
Can't tell a word about it if no one's alive to tell it.
It was interesting because I was like kind of in that thread before we got to the end where it was like, you need to go find Omega. I was like, oh, this is how the Bad Batch are going to be pulled in to the fight more intimately because they're going to be hunted because they were witnesses. I was like, they're a loose thread that the Empire needs to cut. So now, obviously, there's a secondary motivation now, but at first I was like, now they're hunted because they saw something they shouldn't have. Yeah. Just like all these poor villagers, children and all.
I'm actually more surprised that they didn't just end them right there. They had him like circled about. They had him like
Tech was too good of a pilot.
No, I meant like the townspeople. Like they had him rounded up before they herded him onto that ship. I thought they would have done it Force Awakens style and just pew 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 pew.
They're not there yet.
They're not there yet. They have to get to the First Order first.
They have to do something sneakily, I guess. Or they also had a line there where it kind of seemed like only half of the village saw it, so they only took half.
Maybe.
I couldn't tell, but man, maybe they're not that audacious yet. Who knows?
Well, that's yeah. I think those poor townspeople don't have a lot of time left if they're still alive, to be honest. So
no, they're gone.
That's a shame.
Or they're like in some like work camp.
some holding cell on some planet.
They're mining
moon.
Something or whatever.
Yeah, maybe they went to the spice mines of Kessel and they're like, "Oh, I seen the terrible monsters." Like, yeah, Tom. Yep, keep
got
digging.
Very Nazi vibes.
Oh, sure.
From them being loaded up.
I did as well. Not great. Not great. It's all right, Elise. So you've alluded to it. Let's get to the real cliffhanger of this episode here. Is Omega the key? And if so, what is she the key to unlocking?
I don't think the Empire knows how much of a key she could be. You know? Like, yeah, she's the motivation for the scientists to cooperate. And that's important to them. But I think if they get their hands on Omega and they realize what she is and like the genetic material she carries, she's another Zilla Beast.
I guess that's my question is, what would she be the key to unlocking, right? Because we know that she is basically a female cloning type of...
That ages normally.
So it's basically just Boba Fett,
But they don't
female.
know Boba Fett exists.
They don't, of course, yeah.
So I think...
Or they don't know that he's still alive,
yeah, I think he's disappeared enough where, like, I think... he would be just as hunted, I think, eventually, if they learn they can get something from Omega. But there must be something.
I'm just curious. There must be something else in her chain.
Yeah, because the scientist was very protective of her. Yeah. And I don't think it's simply because she grew connection.
She had an empathetic connection to her, or sympathetic. Yeah, I'm not sure about that either. There must be something work-wise, because that's the only thing Kaminoans cared about was their work.
It must be something around regeneration, if you're going to connect it to Exegol.
Well, that's what I'm going to ask. Is there a through line between Omega to Exegol?
That would be nuts.
Yeah, is Omega like the most important character in the Star Wars saga?
Is she the reason we get Rey?
Yeah. She could be. She could be the key to unlocking all of this.
That would be wild. Also, it would be so sad because it means they have to capture her because to figure it out.
I mean, I'm purely speculating poorly here.
Yeah, so, you're going off the rails. You're losing it.
I'm just trying
not Force Ghost conversation.
I'm just trying to connect some dots here.
Okay.
All right. We know Grogu got captured.
Yeah.
In season 2 of The Mandalorian. They did experiments on him.
Yeah.
Omega could be the key to something. Is Omega and Grogu equal Rey? Whatever they get from Omega, whatever they get from Grogu, X plus X equals Y?
Why would Grogu be there? Just because they've done experiments?
They did experiments on his blood. I know it influenced the Dark Trooper program, but it has to, in my mind, potentially lead to something greater. And when you have the same creators involved, like a Filoni, overseeing these projects to some degree, you got to imagine there's some through lines that they're trying to connect here.
Like, what if his son is a clone of Palpatine? You know, because it wasn't the son. Like, I don't remember in the final the sequel trilogy. Mm-hmm. What did we learn? That Palpatine had a son.
So he's a failed clone. Daughter. He's a failed clone. The son is a failed clone of Palpatine. It was an attempt that just was another, it turned out to be a regular human, I guess.
Yeah.
His name's Dathan, and that he married, or I don't know if they actually get married or not off the top of my head, but he falls in love with Miramir, who's Rey's mom, and then they have Rey.
What if Omega unlocks something that allows him to create that
whatever genetic pattern it is, plus Grogu's blood potentially?
You're going nuts today.
I'm going wild.
You're going,
and of course, if none of this happens, then it's just pure speculation and just for the fun of it, which I'm fine with. I don't care. It's just, but if I'm fascinated with the possibility of this show that so many people have,
and it's established canon that he's a failed clone, right?
It is, yeah.
Son, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Then
they talk about it a lot in the book Shadow of the Sith, which I just listened to. So
yeah, then it's hard not to draw connections if Omega is a key. It also serves the vehicle, the catalyst for bringing the Bad Batch back into the fight instead of hiding.
Exactly, it's all that.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, for a show that we've seen on Twitter, we've seen it on TikTok, we've seen people like, where's the point of all this? What are we doing? It's just another filler episode, yada, yada, yada. We come in week to week loving what we're getting. And people...
Who's saying that?
You saw that TikTok I sent you where they're like, the most inconsistent show ever, et cetera, et cetera. And
were people saying that after this episode?
Not after this. No, I'm just saying like in the weeks leading up to it, right? Okay. You get all these episodes.
So I was like, this was kind of a big reveal in a lot of ways.
And I'm in defense of the show being like, the why is there.
Yeah, they're going to do some big reveals.
Yeah.
They're going to be, it's going to be a connector thread for sure.
Don't sit on the Bad Batch whatsoever. Don't skip it. It's powerful Star Wars that are all interconnected in this woven galaxy.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Which I think is cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I didn't even think, wow. I wasn't even thinking like that.
We went deep in this episode.
You were thinking a lot more broadly than I was. I got so distracted from that voice that I really didn't think past what I was looking at.
Well, yeah, they're like off-world Kaminoan experiments and all this stuff. I'm like, what are they doing? What is going on here?
Yeah.
They're trying to clone a Zillobeast. They created a Zillobeast that was dead and recreated one. So let's just say like...
That feeds off electrical
energy. The concept is there.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, you've convinced me.
Ooh, boy. Well, did you have anything else to talk about in this episode? I know you have some notes. Did you have any other fun?
Yeah, I did my fun beats this episode, if I can list them.
Give it to me.
One, it was funny to watch the negotiation with Sid at the front because Wrecker was totally going to take 35%. He kept doing that like, 35? I can't believe it. Sure, let's take it. And it's like,
that was a good one. I like that.
60, man.
Also, boohoo on Sid for like...
I'm glad they finally were like...
They got to stand up to her.
Yeah, I'm glad they stood up to her. That was good. I like that even Omega knows the unspoken... Like, she even knew the unspoken rule of not splitting up in a ship in a haunted area.
Yep.
The group always dies. Luckily, not the case this time, but she knew the rules. They didn't follow them.
The rules are the rules, and the facts are the facts.
Yes, exactly. Also, there was a couple moments where like she was genuinely afraid in the ship, and it was nice to see her act her age. You know, like sometimes she's so fearless. You're like, I can't believe she's like a teenager, right? But she like was a little scared this episode, and I was like, it's nice to remember you're a girl,
13, 15,
whatever. Also, the battle in the ship got us a couple moments. Wrecker was very protective of Omega and like kept pushing her behind him and stuff. And I was like, brotherly love, I like it.
Yeah.
And then at the end, when Tech was racing out of the ship, he did a couple really cool like spin moves and stuff. And he looked really good fighting. And you forget that he's a good fighter.
He's still, for all the knowledge that he brings to everything, he's still...
I was like, oh, Tech's got moves. All right, let's see it.
To that extent, can I also say how refreshing it was to have a huge monster that didn't eat Wrecker?
I know. I was like, oh, God.
Like, oh, God, he's going to be ripped in half again or something.
He's going to get in half in the mouth and then have to, like, punch his way out or something. Like, just wild.
Yeah, was that how the Zilla Beast gets defeated ultimately? Is it eats Wrecker and he just fights his way out?
Yeah.
Yeah, thankfully that's not the case at all.
So those were my moments. I thought it, again, fun, big implications for the world now that we've talked about it more. And, Bad Batch is back to being hunted.
Back to being hunted. Who knows who else comes into play in the next couple of episodes here, where they go next. I'm sure Sid's is not going to be a safe place very soon here, but the Empire will find out very fast about that. Mm-hmm. It's going to be... We hit the nexus of the season, I think, and it's going to just be downhill after this point.
No, this was like the big moment of, we had fun adventures.
So I think this is episode 11 or something like that, so there's only like 4 or 5 more.
There's 16 this?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 5 more.
5 more, and the last one's 2.
That's enough to, like, get them pinned in a corner and then also see maybe another Crosshair episode.
Yeah, I think we need a Crosshair-centric one.
But yeah, I think we're past the point of, like, just going on adventures. Do you think we see Wrecker or Echo and Rex again?
I gotta think we do.
I think that we might see them in a rescue position.
I think absolutely that, yeah. I think the team gets cornered into some situation that they can't.
Do you think Omega gets captured? I kind of think she might get captured.
I think she does.
If I'm
speculating again.
Irresponsibly,
then yeah.
Speculating, yet not pining our hopes and dreams.
If it doesn't happen,
pinning our hopes and
I'm
dreams.
letting the creators tell the story they want. But as a person that's just geeking out about something, absolutely.
All right. We're not going to clutch it too tightly.
Absolutely. And if they don't do it, it's the worst show ever. How dare they? No, joking. Well, Elise, thanks again for coming on to the podcast to talk about this, dare I say, pivotal episode of the Bad Batch and of the overall show to this point.
You gave me a lot to think about.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot. Hopefully, next week continues this thread of excellent episodes that we've had for a stint here.
Yeah.
So we'll be back. Those at home, we'll be back on Sunday discussing the new episode of The Mandalorian. And, of course, we're doing 2 episodes a week now on Force Ghost Conversations until we're through with both when The Mandalorian and Bad Batch are coinciding with each other. So be sure to look for us in your feeds next Sunday and Wednesday until the Bad Batch has concluded. But until then, may the Force be with you. Take care.